السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين، وصل على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين، وصل على سيدنا محمد في المرسلين، وصل على سيدنا محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وزدنا علما وزدنا علما. اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. اللهم زدنا محبتك ومحبة رسولك صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome back to another video where we shall learn about the descriptions of the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May these lessons be a reason for us to increase us in our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and eventually gaining the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last video we learned about, we discussed the first hadith in this kitab, Shama'il al-Muhammadiyah. And that hadith was reported by Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. The second hadith in this bab, in this chapter, which is the reports pertaining to the appearance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again reported by Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, that he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ربعة ليس بالطويل ولا بالقصير. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was of a medium height. He was neither too tall nor was he short. We mentioned in the previous hadith that here it means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not short, he was not at all short, but he was not too tall, as in he was tall. Yes, he was tall, but he wasn't abnormally too tall. But above all, he wasn't short. Hasan al-Jismi, he had a good physique, a physical build, right? So we can see the build of someone. Usually we'll gauge it based on the height and the shoulder, right? The length and the width. Hasan al-Jismi وكان شعره ليس بجعد ولا سبط. His hair was neither curly nor was it completely straight. أسمر اللون, he was in this hadith mentioned that he was a tanned complexion. إذا مشى يتكفأ. Hadith reported by Sunan at-Tirmidhi. إذا مشى يتكفأ. It means when he walked, he would lean forward slightly and walk. Okay? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to lean forward slightly when he used to walk. What can we understand from this hadith, right? There are repetitions from the previous hadith, some of it, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't too tall. He was tall, but he wasn't short. His hair was not curly. It wasn't too straight as well. But in this hadith, the additions, which is Hasan al-Jismi, he had a good physique. He had a physical build, good physical build. And in this hadith, it's mentioned that he was tanned, asmar al-lawn, he was tanned. But pertaining to this comment of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, some of the scholars have gone to agree that this part of this hadith is not authentic. Why? Because Ali al-Qari says that there were around 15 people who described the skin tone of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 15 people in all described about the skin tone of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, And of these 15, all of them reported, even Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh, as per the previous hadith, reported that that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was of a rosy complexion, a rosy skin tone. That means towards the reddish side of. He was white. He was fair, but he was leaning towards the reddish side of fairness. But in this hadith, it says asmar al-lawn, which means he had a tanned complexion. So because this contradicts the other 15 people who narrates, even Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh himself, scholars have gone to agree that this part of the hadith is inauthentic. But then again, there are different explanations. For example, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Haytami radiallahu anh, he explains the reason why Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh stated in this hadith that he had a tanned complexion. Okay, it is that Arabs sometimes used to call someone with a white skin tone that is mixed with redness. So if somebody had a white skin tone which is mixed with redness, they used to call him asmar, a tanned, a person who is tanned or deep browned. So this, in this point of view, it is a difference in usage, right? A difference in a usage of words. The Arabs were known to call someone with this a red and rosy complexion, as asmar or tanned. But it doesn't. So in this way, Ibn Hajar radiallahu anh says that justifies the description, the narration of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anh, right? But then again, if one argues that the skin color of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the most noble of skin colors and the most honorable of all colors, then why has it been mentioned in a hadith, in the other different hadiths, narrations, that the color, the skin tone of the dwellers of paradise will be white with some yellowness, which has been stated. This has been stated also in other tafasir, explanation or exegetes of the Quran. Ibn Hajar al-Haytami radiallahu anh, he explains that the basis of the skin's color is both the same. The wisdom behind the above mentioned narration, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a rosy white but rosy complexion, is because of the blood that flowed through his comparatively fair or white skin tone. So this was where the redness actually came from, because of the blood. But the yellowness of the skin which has been described about the dwellers of heaven, this is because of the purity of the food that is available in Jannah, and this can only be attained in Jannah. So these two skin tones does not contradict each other. So what we understand from this is that in terms of a complexion of a human being in this world, the most honorable or noble or beautiful skin tone would be what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was mentioned to have, which is a white and rosy, a slightly reddish skin tone, skin complexion. But the dwellers of Jannah, on the other hand, they will have, instead of a yellow, they will have a red, they will have a yellowish complexion, and this is because of perhaps the lack of blood, as mentioned by Ibn Hajar al-Haytami. So perhaps one of the reasons is because of the lack of the non-requirement of blood in Jannah, and also mainly because of the food, the pure food that is provided, that causes the skin complexions. From this we can also gain some insights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam radiallahu an. When he created Adam radiallahu an from clay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took clay, samples of clay from all parts of the world. We know that clay or soil or sand, gravel, the different types of density, and not only that, they have different characteristics. The soil of Asia is different from the soil of the deserts in Africa, or it is different from the soils in the northern America or in Alaska for that matter. Everywhere in the world there are different forms of clay with different characteristics. We have black soil, red soil, desert soil, beach soil. All of these have different properties as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a mixture of all the soils that He created to create Adam alayhi salatu salam, which is why from Adam alayhi salatu salam we find a diverse, number of complexions in today's world, as we can see. We have the Asians we have the Chinese brothers and sisters who have fair with yellow complexion. We have the Indians who have darker brownish complexion. We have those in the African brothers and sisters who have darker complexion. We have the Europeans who have whitish, palish. There are those who are palish. There are those who are reddish. What we understand is that all of these colors are mere properties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended for humankind. And by no matter should we belittle other human beings based on skin tone. We also know, in this, we're discussing about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had a fair skin tone, which is of course the most noble complexion in terms of human beings. But at the same time, we know of other prophets who had a dark complexion. For example, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was known to have a very dark skin complexion. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is one of the greatest 5 prophets or greatest 5 human beings ever to be created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was one of the ulul azm, one of the greatest 5 prophets. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we should not, this thing called racism, this isn't something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses to grade human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He doesn't look at your skin, He doesn't look at your clothes, but He looks at what is inside your hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions in the Quran, "Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum." The most honored amongst human beings in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those who are most pious amongst us. So it is the piety in our hearts that raises our ranks, because the piety is something that we can choose to act upon and choose to live with. Despite on the other hand, our skin tone is not something we can choose. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, where we take a stand here today regarding this topic, this issue, is that in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowing some of His creations, Allah says, وَفَضَّلْنَا بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. We have preferred, given some preference to some over the others. But let us leave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam aside, because he is the most perfect human being. He is Habibullah. When we look at common human beings, all of us, despite of our state of complexion, our physical build, or characteristics, we all have an equal chance to attain the high rewards that we can attain by our choice of actions, by our choice of characters that we would like to hold on to. By increasing knowledge, we can gain the highest levels in terms of human beings after the Prophets alayhi salatu salam. So, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, another thing that we can also understand is that complexion can also vary based on the nearest, as scientists explain, the pigmentation in our skin varies depending on our distance or closeness towards the equator. So, and also when I was further away from Singapore for a few months, I realized that I was in the southern hemisphere, and I didn't have much outdoor exposure, I realized that when I came back to Singapore, my family immediately noticed that I became much fairer than I was. And this was maybe because of the winter climate that I was in and the food. So pigmentation can also vary based on the climate, based on our exposure to sun, based on food. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, what I would like to share with you from a brother or to a sister, do not take the physical appearance of more important than the beauty of our internal character and our hearts. What is most important is nur. Even if something was very white, but if there was no light, it will still be seen as black. So in the end of the day, it is not the color, but it is the nur, it is the light, it is the illumination that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon people that makes them beautiful, either in terms of sight, physical sight, or in terms of the spiritual connection, or even both. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجْعَلِ اللَّهُ لَهُ نُورًا فَمَا لَهُ مِن نُور. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't bestow upon him nur, light, then he has no light, he has no guidance at all. And Allah is nurun ala nur. He is the light of above all lights. So my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, what we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He beautifies our characters, He gives us, increases us in nur, illuminates us from within, from outside, in front of us, behind us, from our sides, from above us and from beneath us, to engulf us in His holy illumination, so that we will continuously be guided to the straight path. Inshallah, we shall end today's session and meet again in the next video. Jazakumullahu khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.